What's up everybody, and thank you for joining me for another video. My name is Whack4863, but you can call me Whack. Today I want to take a look at Forspoken. Now this is a new game from Square Enix. It is an open world action RPG. You play as a female protagonist from New York dropped into another realm where you're met with all sorts of different conflicts when you get there. Now I picked it up and I started playing it on a live stream for the first time. So if you had a chance to watch the live stream, you probably have more of my first impressions, but I want to give you guys a more quick and concise review with this video. Now, as of the making of this video, I have a total of 4 hours into the gameplay, and I've just now reached the point where I feel like I may actually start enjoying the game. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and whack that like button and don't forget to subscribe for future content. My first criticism of this game is the fact that it takes you 4 hours to get to the point where you actually feel like you're playing the game. Now, if you're somebody that enjoys sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic, stop-and-go traffic, you're probably gonna love the first 3 hours to 4 hours of this game, because that's what it feels like. You get to play a little bit and then BAM! You're stopped by something. You get to play a little bit and then BAM! You're stopped by something. And most of that's actually the tutorial. It feels like you barely get to play 15 to 30 seconds and then you're confronted by another tutorial screen. And this goes on for about the first 3 hours of gameplay. You really don't actually get to play the game until you reach about 3.5 hours, where it gives you some semblance of actually being able to go out and play the game. Prior to that, like I said, it's like red light, green light. You get to go a little bit and then bam, you're stopped by something else. And then once you're finished with what you feel like is definitely the tutorial, right around chapter 4, then you're met with your first side mission, or detour as they call it in game. During this detour, there's actually an option to engage in feeding the sheep. And if you feed the sheep, it just regenerates the same feeling and experience again. You go up, you press interact to feed the sheep, and you're greeted by a black screen that has stopped you and told you that you fed a sheep. Now, if you don't interact with this screen, it's never going to go away. It will stay there until you click a button. And I don't understand why it has to be that way. Why does it have to stop you so much in this game with a screen that tells you information that could quickly come up as a pop-up on the page? I found myself so annoyed with the game by the time I hit 4 hours that I almost didn't want to go back into it. But I really felt like I'd be leaving a lot on the table for this review if I didn't grit my teeth and bear through what could possibly be more stop signs along the road or my journey to actually getting to the point where I feel like I can play the game as intended. And now that I played the game a little bit more, I'm trying to actually avoid interacting with a lot of the different characters that you come across in the world, because you're stopped by talking. Anytime something is talking, except for minimal times where your bracelet's talking to you, you actually get stopped. Even the conversation with the bracelet won't allow you to continue to other places. It's like you have to stand there and just wait for all these things to finish. I honestly feel like if I wasn't playing this on mouse and keyboard, I'd literally be stopping, setting the controller down, and just watching it go by. Now, I'm not saying that cutscenes are bad. I'm not saying that any of those kinds of things are terrible in games, but I did feel like I could spend more time playing the first 4 hours of this game by leaving the controller set down than I could actually play with the controller in hand, interacting with the different mechanics of the game. And I really feel like this is a big miss for any game out there. If you don't capture the attention of the people playing your game within the first hour, it's likely that they're going to click off and go play something else. This one drove me nuts during the live stream, closing window after window after window after window. And it wasn't like these were lull times. Right in the middle of the first fight with the dragon, I think there were 3 or 4 pop-up screens, which were tutorial screens, which would absolutely stop the flow of the fight. I feel like these things could have been delivered earlier on in game and in a much more rapid sense. And then once I get to that first fight, then I'm able to actually engage and enjoy that without having any tutorials popping up and stopping that gameplay. And that's my biggest warning right out of the gate, is those tutorial screens and the loading screens and the stoppage that you're going to experience with this game, at least in the first 4 hours, can be devastating. So if you're thinking about picking this game up, you have to know that those first 4 hours are grueling. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the voice acting or the commentary, the script of the game.
Then allow me to perform the horrible terror of Preynost.
You really need some help naming these.
Preynost is a harsh and unforgiving land. Not all who make the journey there are fortunate enough to escape a fiery fate. And for those they leave behind, not remains but emptiness. You would do well to take care if you plan on venturing there yourself.
Not exactly the most illuminating of ditties, was it? That's the trouble with these arty types. Very little in the way of practical advice.
Now, the voice acting isn't terrible. It's right on par with what you would expect out of the game. However, I feel like the scripting is actually what really lacks here, because I see some of the jokes and some of the things that they're trying to do with the different characters, but I feel like it just falls a little bit short of where it should be. And honestly, some of them fall flat on their face. Now, the character that you play as has a potty mouth, so much so that I would almost equate it to the amount of curse words that you might hear in Grand Theft Auto.
Okay, can you f***ing let it go already?
What? What's wrong with you all of a sudden?
If you want to save your city, do it your f***ing self.
That's what's coming out of your character's mouth on a regular basis, and I feel like they thought that was going to be funny, putting Faye in a position where she was this potty mouth character in an area or a realm that really doesn't have any kind of language that makes that connection. So all the characters around you are these prim, proper people, and here's your character, this potty mouth New Yorker, who is dropping F-bombs left and right, and it just gets lost in translation. And I almost feel like they use that to make the game feel a little bit more gritty or get it in the hands of more adult players. But I think they could have just dropped that off and left that out of the scripting entirely, and adult players would have looked at this game like any other game that doesn't have cursing in it. It's not like this game has the other gritty elements that you would see in something like a Grand Theft Auto or anything like that. You don't have the gore, you don't have the kind of violence that you would see, and you definitely don't see any form or fashion of nudity in this game. So it really does come down to just the potty mouth being what sets it up for a mature rating. And I think I'd probably be a little bit more comfortable with that, or a little bit more receiving of it, if their jokes actually connected. If the things that they were trying to do actually connected and made sense, then I think I'd be more okay with it. But since those jokes just kind of fall flat, I really feel like it's just entirely out of place. However, once you're finally able to get past all of that, if you're able to get past all of that, and you're able to actually get into some of the combat for the game, then I think you'll be okay, because the combat is rather fun and it can be pretty fulfilling. However, they put a ranking system in the combat which actually requires you to switch between a whole bunch of your different magics, and that actually slows down the combat system because you're opening that menu, freezing time a little bit, selecting the other magic, and then using that. So in my opinion, while the combat's good, I don't feel like it's as fluid or as flawless as it could be, because you're chasing that higher ranking in all of your battles, and in order to reach that higher ranking, you're going to need to go through these screens and use a bunch of different magics in order to get that high ranking. I also find it kind of odd that there's a couple of different run systems. So you have shift where you can run, and then you have what's called like a magic parkour where you run faster and you use your stamina. And I just feel like those things are kind of overlaid and disconjointed. So you have your regular run, and then you have your super magical run, and one doesn't use stamina and one does. And I understand why they did it. However, I feel like they could have just given you the magic run, and that probably would have been better. Now, they would have had to balance the game a little bit more towards giving you more stamina for that run, but I find myself using that run over the shift run anyway, because it's so much faster and so much more fun to explore the world that way. The other thing that popped up very early on in game was a warning about continuing before completing areas of the map. And I felt like that's something in an open world game that you would receive as a warning message when you're going into that final fight, not when you're ending the first mission. And I'm still not sure if I missed anything in that first area. There's a good possibility that I missed a ton in that first area because I wanted to get through the tutorial. And remember, I was still in the tutorial when it told me, hey, maybe you want to look around before you continue on. And at first I thought maybe that's just a one-off, but as I continued playing the game, I was met with that screen again saying, hey, maybe you want to do some other things before continuing on to the next mission. Which makes me feel like this game is not actually open world and it is much more linear than it is perceived. But that's something that I'm going to have to find out down the road and possibly after multiple playthroughs, which honestly at this point, guys, I don't think I've got multiple playthroughs under my belt for this game. Now there is a cinematic skip feature, so maybe that's something that would come in handy if I do try to play it a second time, but at this point I haven't even gotten through it the first time, so who's to say if I'm actually going to enjoy it enough to play it a second time. I'm a pretty firm believer that games need to capture your attention and your love within the first hour, especially with Steam's return policy being gameplay under an hour. If they haven't done the job by then, they're going to see a lot of those games being returned. And I cannot say that this game captured my attention within an hour. And I really can't stress enough how frustrating the first 4 hours of this game are. And I've seen other people having the same frustrations that I have, so I know I'm not the only one on this boat. So far, that's my biggest takeaway, and that's where I want to concentrate this review. If you can't get through the first 4 hours of this game, you should not buy it. If you're going to be frustrated with the constant pop-ups that stop you from being able to progress, then this is not the game for you, and I definitely recommend that you don't pick it up. However, if you think you can get through those first 4 hours and still have your sanity, I do feel like this game is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to playing it now that I'm through that tutorial. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to recommend that you pick up Forspoken. It doesn't hit it out of the park like I was hoping it did, and the constant stopping in the beginning has just put a sour taste in my mouth. That coupled with the jokes and the dialogue that just kind of falls flat, I don't feel like this is a really good investment of your time or your money. But if you're already playing the game, I want to know what your opinion is in the comment section below. I'd like to thank all my YouTube members for your continued support. Y'all are absolute legends. If you'd like to become a legend, there's a button that says join on this page. Click that for details. There's 2 videos on the screen. Click one of those to watch next, and I'll meet you over there.